The Cardinals have to find some balance on offense. So let's break it down. You're locked on Louisville.
You are Locked on Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome in to this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Alden Pence. This is my 6th year covering U of L, 4th year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Don't forget to leave a comment in the YouTube section below because, as you all know, that's a great way to help the show continue to grow. It is much appreciated. We're continuing to break down Louisville's 34-27 victory over the Pittsburgh Panthers on Saturday, 4-0 on the season, 1-0 in ACC play. Look, simply put, the Cardinals have to find some balance on offense. We will discuss the struggles running the football. We'll talk about Miller Moss's up and down performance. Didn't start out great, but he ended spectacularly. And then at the end, we're going to give some credit to Ron English. I know that all offseason it was about criticism. Now, through the first 4 games, we have to give credit where credit is due. A lot of stuff to talk about on the show today. But first, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. As I mentioned on yesterday's show, the Tuesday episode would be more of an analytical approach. Yesterday was broad overview discussion. Today, we were going to get more analytical. The Cardinals had a roller coaster type of win over Pittsburgh, 34-27, one where I felt like for the vast majority of that game, the Cardinals were going to lose. Now, thankfully, when their backs were against the wall twice, they got up off the mat, and they threw their punches. And Louisville was able to take their first lead in the fourth quarter and not look back. So let's take a look at some of the things that the Cardinals have been struggling with and some things that they struggled with again on Saturday. The first thing was running the football. And I had my doubts coming into this game. Of course, Isaac Brown, Duke Watson were questionable on the Thursday ACC injury report. Kewan Brown ruled out. So Colin Lacey got some snaps in practice last week at running back. Not to mention, Pittsburgh almost always has a great front seven. And with the Cardinals' issues on the offensive line, I just didn't really feel good about the Cardinals running the football. I felt like if Louisville was going to have success on offense, it was going to be throwing. And that's how they ended up winning the game. Cardinals on Saturday, 33 carries for 54 yards and 1 touchdown. That comes out to 1.6 yards per carry. Now, it is worth noting that that does factor in the 2 sacks that Miller Moss took. Can we stop this, by the way? Can we stop incorporating sack yardage into a team's total rushing yards? Like, it's so goofy. The NFL doesn't do it. There's no reason for college football to do it. I'm sorry. I can't stand by that. Like, it affects and skews a rushing total. You could have a really good day on the ground, but your quarterback gets sacked a couple times and it doesn't look as good. Still, you saw it with your eyes. Louisville didn't really run the ball all that well. Now, if this was a situation where to start the year, Louisville was really effective on the ground, but due to the injuries, that effectiveness waned a little bit. I think that we would talk about this more. But when you watch the game, yes, Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, not 100%, not close to it. Duke got hurt in the game and ended up going out. They thought that he was going to be out for the remainder. He ends up coming in and having a couple of big plays in the second half, a couple of solid runs. He had 14 for 47 on the ground for the Cardinals. But Louisville wasn't really able to get anything going. Pittsburgh was living in the Cardinals' backfield. They had 10 tackles for loss. Now, I would probably go as far as saying that not all of those were running the football, but still, not much effectiveness in the rushing category. An aspect of this offense that was supposed to be the Louisville bread and butter. Now, I know Isaac Brown, Duke Watson have dealt with injuries. It 1,000% impacts the effectiveness they have at running the football, getting those breakaway runs. But I think when you watch the games, it's pretty clear what's happening. There's nowhere for the Cardinals running backs to go. It's been an issue almost every single game, barring a couple of big-time breakaway runs where Isaac Brown gets through the gap and you're not going to catch him in the open field. Louisville's offensive line. Now, of course, Pro Football Focus is a metric. It's not the metric. I use it to sort of support what I'm seeing with my eyes. Sometimes it doesn't really reflect what I see, but Louisville's Pro Football Focus grades, which takes every single snap into consideration, regardless of what happens on the play, it takes the win-loss rate into account. And Louisville had a 51.5 run blocking grade as a unit. That's not good. That is not good at all. It seemed like, I know that Pittsburgh has probably one of the top 3 front sevens that you're going to face all season. Pat Narduzzi is known for bringing a ton of pressure. So the Cardinals' offensive line was dealing with that. There were some penalties. But, I mean, Louisville just wasn't able to get anything going. The longest rush on the afternoon was a 15-yard carry. Isaac Brown had 14 carries. His longest carry was 9 yards, and he ended with 20 yards. So a lot of these were tackles for loss, to where when a running back gets the ball in the backfield, boom, there's already defenders right there. And that's something that Louisville has to find balance. They have to find balance. And, I mean, pass pro wasn't great either. It was a whopping 44.8 grade. Miller Moss got sacked twice. Offensive line, yes, they are facing a better defensive front that they played all season, but you have to get more from the guys up in the trenches. Now, I get it. Injuries at the running back spot don't make things easy. I understand that. But it seems like no matter who's carrying the football, injured or not, they're not really getting many gaps to run through. Looking at this rushing attack, the Cardinals are 102nd nationally out of 134 teams, 130.2 yards per game. They average 4.24 yards per carry. The Louisville offense is 108th in the country in tackles for loss allowed, with 6.25 per game. That's second worst in the ACC. Like, it looks bad when you're watching it, but when you look at the numbers afterward, I mean, it just kind of reiterates that what you're seeing so far isn't really sustainable if Louisville wants to have a good amount of offensive success. Because you look at college football annually, and the teams that have success are usually the more balanced attacks. Now, there are offenses that are predominantly great at running the football, not so much throwing. You have offenses that are better being an air raid offense and not running the ball a ton. But here's the thing. Usually an offense that, tilts one way or the other on the scale, you don't see much sustained success. Now, Texas was able to do it a little bit last year, but that's because they were able to design the offense to get their playmakers the ball out in space, to be able to use misdirection, to use play calling to his strength, to be able to mask over those rushing inefficiencies. But even then, the offensive line for Louisville has to be able to hold up in pass pro. Like, I mean, yes, we talk about not being able to run the football, but the offensive line hasn't really been good at holding up a clean pocket for Moss to be able to throw with either. Now, granted, there have been situations where Moss has just missed throws. There have been situations to where, I mean, he makes a wrong read. Look, I'm not putting all the blame on the offensive line, but they've got to get better. I understand Pittsburgh has a good front seven, but there's no way around it. Like, the Louisville has to maintain balance. Miller Moss threw the ball 51 times on Saturday. If Louisville wants to have a chance to contend in the ACC, you have to be more effective. You can't be one-dimensional, because what's happening is you're putting yourself in third and long situations, you're putting yourself in spots where teams know that you can't run the ball, so they're just pinning their ears back and rushing the passer, and they're getting home more often than not. So if Louisville wants to get to that next level of effectiveness for the offense, it's got to start up front. It's got to start with getting your running backs healthy as well. I don't know if that means incorporating more outside zone, more stretch runs. I don't know. More operating in the power formation rather than in the shotgun running the football. That's going to be up to Jeff Brom and Brian Brom to be able to work through moving forward. Now, Miller Moss missed some throws in that first half against Pittsburgh. Didn't have a great start. Had the pick six to put Louisville down 17 points, but he answered in the second half. He was spectacular, in my opinion, for the most part in the second half. We'll discuss when we come back on this Monday edition. You're Locked on Louisville, your team every day. Sorry, Tuesday edition, not Monday edition. Tuesday edition. You get what I'm saying. Anyway, let's go to break. Card Nation, one of the tools that helps make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that you can be connected to 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying two phones or relying on one of those outdated landlines. Whether you're a solo operator juggling everything or part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no customers. Of course, I meant to say no missed customers at the end of that break. And speaking of not missing, I really do appreciate you all for consistently tuning in and making Locked on Louisville your first listen every day. Just a reminder that the show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. This game was a whirlwind. I keep repeating that. And one of the reasons as to why that is because the passing game was all over the place. Now, there was a lot of criticism out there for Miller Moss in the first half. And a lot of it was justified. Remember last week when we had the conversation of how much of this criticism is actually justified. I mentioned that some of this is his fault, but I think that there is a large portion that isn't his fault. Bad offensive line play, dropped passes, the lack of a run game, being one-dimensional on offense, you name it. Now, Miller Moss ended up on the afternoon 33 for 51 completion. 339 yards, 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. Not terrible. The numbers look okay, but of course we can't just watch the box scores. First half, again, all systems misfire for the Cardinals offense. I think that, to be fair, he was getting pressured a good amount. The Cardinals' rushing attack wasn't working. So what did Pittsburgh do? Well, they did what they always do. They forced Louisville to make bad decisions. They were aggressive. They were getting into the backfield. They were using stunts that Louisville just wasn't picking up on. And it was making Miller Moss's life miserable in the first half. And even when he does have a clean pocket or a clean opportunity, I mean, you're almost seeing ghosts at that point, because you're almost anticipating that pressure. Now, let's be critical. There were a handful of throws that Miller Moss just completely missed. There were throws to where it seemed like he was trying to put some more oomph on the pass and end up grounding the ball to where it wasn't close to getting to the receiver. There were times, and this has been an issue, to where he sometimes throws the ball too high. He airmails some passes, and that has to stop. He has to be able to connect with his receiver. And then there were other opportunities that he just flat out missed throws. And whether it was not throwing well on the run, not seeing an open receiver, Miller Moss wasn't perfect. And that's what I'm trying to get at here is why I'm saying that a good portion of this is not his fault. There is a portion of this that was his fault on Saturday and even the first couple of games before this. Now, in the second half, he did a complete 180. You saw his confidence to where he was stepping into throws. He was making good decisions. He was getting the ball out quickly. The Colin Lacey throw in the fourth quarter that ended up leading to that decision on, third down, where Miller Moss has an RPO, puts the ball in, I think it was Duke Watson, puts the ball in the hands of Duke Watson. Pittsburgh's defense collapses. He pulls the ball out, ends up sprinting to the left. No one's there. He ends up having an easy throw to Jaleel Skinner. Skinner runs into the end zone from 12 yards out. That is a really good decision that we saw. And then the best play that we saw from Miller Moss was when the game was tied 27-27. The Cardinals had just intercepted Eli Holstein and had the ball inside the 30-yard line. Miller Moss at the 9-yard line later in the drive takes a snap, gets pressure, goes to the right just a bit, he's got a defender in his face, he's having to throw off his back foot and floats a ball to the end zone where, Nate Kariski is covered, and he puts the pass where only his tight end can catch it. Kariski comes down with a great grab, and Louisville takes the lead. Miller Moss in the fourth quarter, when it mattered the most, Miller Moss was 6 of 7 for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Was it a perfect performance from Miller? No. Should he throw the ball 50 times a game moving forward? I would certainly hope not. But what I saw from him, because in the first half, I was like you all. I was wondering, okay, with an offensive line that's struggling to protect, does Louisville need to go with more of a dual threat option? Do we need to try out Deuce Adams? Because something's not working. Miller Moss throws the pick six, and you're like, how long of a leash does Moss have? And the Cardinals are able to answer and tie the game up at 17. But how I felt, again, I'll say this again, how I felt at 3:30 on Saturday was so different than how I felt at 1:30, 2 o'clock. Because what I saw from Miller Moss in the second half was honestly like you gave Miller Moss his phone at halftime and said, go to Twitter and look at what people are saying. And Miller Moss said, okay, they wrote me off, but I didn't write back. That's kind of the vibes we got. Miller shut a lot of people up in the second half. And it's good because, his performance in the first half was one that deserved some justifiable criticism. But it wasn't all his fault. And that's kind of been my main thing is we blamed all the offensive issues on Miller at times. Now, in the second quarter or into the first quarter, there were situations where Miller, you got to be better. So two things can be true at one time. Miller's got to be better, but a lot of this just isn't his fault. I don't know what other way to put it. But what we saw in the third and fourth quarter was Moss be able to take this step forward, deal with the issues, and say, you know what, let's go will this team to victory. And they were able to do that. And I love to see that from Miller. I think that it is foreshadowing for what's to come. I think that even though it wasn't pretty, you saw an offense get up off the mat, down 17-0, and come back. You saw an offense down 27-17 at the end of the first half and make a comeback. And even in the first, even in a couple drives in the third quarter where your offense stalled out a little bit, in the fourth quarter, you rose to the occasion. So if I had to give Miller Moss a grade through the first 4 games, looking at his overall numbers, he has completed 86 of 131 passes for a 66 completion percentage, 1,029 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's been sacked 8 times. I would say probably a C to a C plus. I think he's been solid at times, but he has to be consistent throughout. Does he have the potential to get there? I believe he does. I've been a huge advocate for Moss, and I think that he's going to continually get better and better. And I'm hoping that this is a performance that can springboard him forward into what could be a really solid end of the season throwing the football, because you saw that confidence in the second half, and you kind of didn't see that up until this point of the season. So again, not a perfect performance, but one that I found encouraging with how he ended it. So speaking of encouraging, we got to give credit where credit is due, because the criticism was loud last season and in the offseason. Ron English, thank you. And congratulations on a good start to the season. We'll give him some credit when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. First, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. NFL Week 4 concluded last night, and FanDuel continually has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win that bet. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action, whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats. FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. Louisville covered the spread for the first time this season with a 34-27 victory over Pittsburgh on Saturday. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the app today and get started. Got to give credit. Look, we were very critical of the Cardinals defense last year, and rightfully so. I mean, the Cardinals defense kept Louisville out of the playoff or playoff consideration, in my opinion. We were critical of Jeff Brum's decision to keep Ron English for the third season, because on paper, your offense was supposed to be really good. Defensively, you lose a lot, and you're telling me that a defense that lost a considerable amount of talent has to, or is going to be able to take a step forward? Well, there were things that needed to be addressed. Communication, play calling, blitz packages, you name it. But through the first 4 weeks, Ron English has passed the test. Now, granted, the first 3 games, offenses that weren't really able to throw the football. 2 of those games you were supposed to win by over 21 points. So can you give the defensive coordinator, ample credit for this? Personally, I think credit is due, but still, you've got to see more, because Pittsburgh's offense got those big-time yardage plays, and that was one of the issues last year, is that Louisville, whether it was missed assignments, lack of communication, not knowing where you're supposed to be, Louisville gave up big plays. And through the air on Saturday, Pittsburgh had passing play gains of 34, 39, 38, and 56. Thank goodness you were able to turn Pittsburgh over. But you got to be able to work on that. Giving up big plays, a lot of it deep passes. Like the Cardinals have been getting gashed over the top, whether you have to have more safety help. I know that defending quarterbacks that can run have been a point of emphasis for this Cardinals defense. But let's look at the numbers through the first 4 games. We'll start with the game against Pittsburgh. First off, the Cardinals being able to force as many turnovers as they did was absolutely critical, and you don't win the game if that's not the case. Like Pittsburgh had 5 turnovers. 3 interceptions in the second half, 2 by TJ Quinn. There was that one-handed interception from Antonio Watts where Pittsburgh did have that huge play down to the goal line. I think it was Kataris Hicks, the old Louisville player. Now, did he actually catch the ball? Should have been replayed, or should have been reviewed. But anyway, Antonio Watts ends up with a one-handed interception that prevents Pittsburgh from extending a 27-20 lead to a 34-20 lead late in the third quarter. It was a huge game-changing, momentum-saving play that Louisville was able to benefit from. So you have the turnovers in the second half that were key. Let's see. Pittsburgh had 339 total yards of offense, and the majority of the passing yards, 259 of those, came on 4 plays. Pittsburgh's offense, 1 of 10 on third down. Credit the Cardinals' third down defense. Currently, they are top 25 in that category, allowing conversions at a 28.8% conversion rate, I should say. They're 7th in turnovers gained nationally. Now they have 9. They got 5 on Thursday or on Saturday against Pittsburgh, but still that counts, right? It's awesome to see. 37th in scoring defense, giving up 18.75 points per game. 18th in sacks per game. They average about 3 per contest. That's second in the ACC. They are 18th in total defense, giving up 26.8 yards per game, 43rd in rushing defense, 15th in passing defense. Now, are these numbers going to stay similar at the end of the season? I would say probably not. I think that you're going to see Louisville fall back in some of these categories because you're going to play offenses that throw the ball better than EKU and James Madison and Bowling Green. Pittsburgh had the best passing attack by far that you had played in the season, but you're going to face some better passing attacks. Virginia, for example, Chandler Morris, really, really good quarterback. One of the best quarterbacks in the ACC. Hey, he has been an incredible signal caller for the Virginia Cavaliers. So I think that here's where I'm at with Ron English. A ton of credit for what we've seen, because the defense won them the James Madison game. The defense won them the Pittsburgh game. Can't not give him credit. This season looks totally different if the defense doesn't make the stops that they make. They could be 3-1, or forbid they could be 2-2, but they're 4-0 mainly because of the defense. I think we can agree on that. But I think the defense has to get that much better moving forward. I think you have to get more pressure on the better quarterbacks that you're going to play. You have to be able to complete tackles in the backfield. 90th in the country in tackles for loss, averaging about 5 per game. You have to be able to win at the line of scrimmage and consistently get teams in third and long situations to get off the field and give your offense more opportunities. So give as much credit as we need to give to Ron English, to Mark Hagan, to Mark Ivey, to Steve Ellis, to the entire defensive coaching staff. Also, moving forward, like I said, there has to be more improvement shown, and they're going to get tested. They're going to continue to get tested. There's going to be more challenging uphill battles that they're going to have to, even if they don't win, they have to be respectable in dealing with those. And the defense has to be serviceable. That's what I said before the season, because I thought that Louisville's offense was going to be much better than what it is right now, and that has been the case. So there's more emphasis and pressure on Louisville's defense to go out every single week and keep teams off the scoreboard. Like, Louisville did not allow a score in the second half to Pittsburgh. They bent a couple times, but they didn't break, and that was awesome to see. Tomorrow we're going to have a little bit of basketball talk. We'll have some mailbag questions built in. If you have any questions, you can send them in the YouTube comments below. But that's going to wrap up this Tuesday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back.